Welcome to the CSS workshop. This workshop is essentially introductory, but even if you have been using CSS for years, it can still be useful. Most people think that CSS is like a mystical art that nobody truly understands. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. People usually are afraid of CSS and try to understand it as little as possible and hack it instead of building with it. Browser bugs and incompatibilities don't help here, but the fact that people don't even try to read and understand the specifications helps even less. So typically this is how our CSS looks at the end. So our agenda for this workshop will be this one. We'll start with the CSS basics. Then we are going to understand what is the inspector. After that, we are going to understand how can we bring HTML and other elements into the platform, followed by the box model and box placement, vertical alignment, browser compatibility, CSS best practices, grids, and media queries. So let's start our agenda. CSS basics. The web applications are composed by three elements: structure, presentation, and behavior. These three elements is what allow us to create web applications as we know it. Probably understood immediately, HTML is what defines the structure, while CSS defines the presentation and JavaScript the behavior. So what does CSS stand for? CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. But why? Cascading style sheets are set up so that you can have multiple properties all affecting the same element. Some of those properties may conflict with one another. For example, you might set the font color of a link to red on one part and then later on set the color of that link to blue. And how does the browser knows which one to apply? First of all, we are going to see that there are three different types of style sheets. There is the author style sheet, which is actually the style sheet that we create when we are doing our projects. So imagine this example, we are defining that the links are going to be red. Then there is the user style sheet. One of the interesting things that the browsers allow you to do and that CSS allows you to do is that the user can on its own computer define how the site should look. And what's going to happen is that the browser will apply this style over this one, meaning the user can define, in this case, that the links are going to be gray. Additionally, and something that you probably have already used, but it's not good practice to use, is actually the important. The important actually allow us to override whatever the user asked or requested to change. So in this case, we are really saying that no, the links are going to be purple. So the user, even if he mentions that the link is going to be gray, or even if we initially mention that the link is going to be red, it doesn't matter because it's important for the links to be purple. Additionally, there is also the user agent style sheet. So the user agent style sheet is the style sheet that all of the browsers have by default. So imagine if you create an empty HTML file, and if you put there the tag h1, meaning heading 1, and you put there some text. If you open it in the browser, you're going to see that the heading has a style. That style is coming from the browser. So the browser has a setup of initial styles. So it's all about what rule to apply to a certain element. But why CSS? Why should we use CSS at all? First of all, it's a clear separation between what is presentation and what is content. Okay? CSS is nothing less and nothing more than the set of rules telling the browser how to display the elements. It allows us to do something very interesting, which is allow us to share the same style sheet across several documents. And by documents, you have to read by several web pages. Okay? And these, of course, allow us to create something that we already know, which is the skin of our sites, the theme that we use in the platform. Okay, so we have one application and we can just go there. If things are correctly done, we can just go there and change the theme from Chicago to London or to Las Vegas, for example, and the application will have the new look and feel of that theme. To which element, or for the browser to know to which element that style should be applied, we have the selector, okay, which is the first part. The selector indicates that the following style is going to be applied to this element or to this group of elements. So let's see what type of selectors do we have. We have selectors by tag, meaning that we are picking HTML tags. So for example, in this example, we are selecting all divs. So in the example below, what would we be selecting? We would be selecting the div. Then we have selectors by class, meaning that we are going to select every element, and we don't care about which tag that element is. We are going to apply this to every element that has the class main content in this example. And once again, in this example, we are going to select the div. Then we can have selectors by ID, meaning that, as you know, IDs don't repeat in a web page. The ID is unique. So this means that a certain style will apply to that specific example. Okay, examples of this that is very common for you to find is styles that are affecting the menu of the application, and in most applications we only have one menu. The style will be in the style sheet, will have the ID. We'll see later on how can we do this in the platform, or how we should avoid this. Then, of course, in this example we would select the div once again. Then we have selectors by pseudo class. Okay, and in this example we have several pseudo classes. It's like first child, last child, and here we have hover. What is it going to be selected with this pseudo class? So imagine that we apply this pseudo class to the div. This means that when the user does a mouse over our div, those styles, the styles that are that were created for the hover, are going to be applied to that element. Additionally, we can have selectors by attribute, in which we actually select a given element depending on the given attribute, so HTML attributes. And this is useful, for example, for using the disabled. In this case, we are actually selecting the input, but we can even create our own attributes. Okay, like in the platform, we can just go to the extended properties, create a specific attribute, and use it in the CSS. Okay. Finally, we can also create selectors by type. Okay, and here by type we can mention that we are going to select everything that has the attribute type, and that the attribute has the value checkbox. Okay, so in this example it would be exactly the same thing. So more about selectors. When we are using pseudo class select, and in this example, for example, we are using first child and last child. But notice that first of all, we have here a new symbol, and we have here a space. A good mnemonic regarding the CSS is the following. When it does have a space or a symbol, we are going to the next element, and we are going to start to read from there. So imagine this case. So we are seeing here main content, space, and symbol. Okay, we are going to start from this. So how is that we can read this? And this is my preferred way, or the easiest, the way that I think that it's the easiest to do it. So we start by the end. We are going to select the first child that is a direct descendant, and this symbol actually means direct descendant of an element that has the class main content. So in the example below, what is that we are going to select? We are going to select the input type checkbox. Why? Because it's the first direct child of the element main content. And how about the second one? Try to read it yourself. So this can be read like the following. I'm going to select the last child that is direct descendant of an element that has the class main content. And in our example, we would be selecting this div. Okay? Selectors can be also by parent, as we have already seen. So in this example, once again, we have space or a symbol. So we have here a symbol. So we start by the end. So we are going to select all inputs that are of the type text that are direct descendant from an element that has the class main content. So looking to our example, which one are we going to select? This one or this one? If you answered this one, you are right. We are going to select this element. How about this one? Once again, we have space, we don't have a symbol, so we start by the end. Okay, I'm going to select all inputs that are direct and indirect. So I'm going to select all inputs that are inside an element that has the class main content. So in our example, how does it translate? To this. We are going to select every input. How about this selector? What is it that we are going to select? We have here a new symbol, and this symbol can be read like is immediately preceded by. So it has a symbol. So first of all, it has a space, then it has a symbol, so we start by the end. So I'm going to select all inputs that are immediately preceded by an input that is inside an element that has the class main content. So in our example, we will be selecting this one, this input. Why? Because first of all, it's an input, then it's preceded by another input, check here, and it's inside an element that has the class main content. Want more selectors? There is a bunch of them. And be sure that people that are used to work with CSS, and depending on, for example, in what is the browser specifications that they are working on, people will tend to use all of these. So get to know them and get to at least to know that they exist.